Hello, everybody, and welcome to a taste of I Am Alchemy. I know several of you on here. Thanks for being here. And some of you I haven't met in person yet, but we've been connected in other ways. I wanted to offer you this course or this class today as a little taste of a longer term course. Many of you had probably heard me talk about it. I've even discussed it with some of you. I do have one or two or a couple of my current alchemy students on here right now. Thank you so much for joining. And today we're going to be diving into one of the foundational principles of this course. Today we're talking about the Three Wisdoms of Hermes. Now, before we go into what that means and why it's important for you, I want to just share a little tiny bit about why I am called to offer this today, knowing that I Am Alchemy is a commitment. It's an investment of your time, your energy, and money, frankly. And I do have a few of you on here who have been in consideration about, do I want to take this course? I want you to have all the information that you need to feel really comfortable and really safe saying yes. And there are some of you on here for maybe that's not part of your consideration. That's okay too. I do want you here. I want you to receive this knowledge. I want you to be in this community. This is something that I'm offering just because I love teaching and because I'm really excited about this material. So today we're going to be going into what is one of the foundations of practical magic, not only for I Am Alchemy, but for any practitioner. I know many of you on here are practitioners, whether it's primarily practicing in your own personal sphere or if you offer that out to other people in the world. This is one of the foundational pieces that allows us to go, like we do in I Am Alchemy, from being just another healer. If you can't see me, I'm making quote marks right now, just another healer, to being a fully empowered master practitioner and master of transformation. We all know the difference. We all know what that feels like. And I know that you're here because you want to step into your own mastery. So please know that I see you. I totally honor and respect that path. And I am so happy and grateful that you're here and that you're stepping into this, even if it's just to dip your toe in the water today. And so just to give you a little bit of an idea of what you can expect from our time today, we're going to begin with a meditation after I give you kind of our little mini introduction today. We'll begin with a meditation and then we'll jump into some conversation about these the Three Wisdoms of Hermes. I'll give you some clues as to how they can support your practice. And then at the end of our conversation, I'll share with you some details about the I Am Alchemy course. And that way you can have a little bit better of an idea of if this is something that you want to step into. So for now, I invite you to go ahead and just set everything aside, set your journal aside. I'll do the same because we're going to go ahead and take a few minutes to tune in our frequencies together. Go ahead and make yourself comfortable. Make any little postural adjustments that you need to drop into a space of receptive stillness. When you're ready, closing your eyes. Let's allow ourselves to sink into the breath and fully arrive in the body now. Exhaling everything out. Deep inhale. And exhale with a sigh. Deep inhale. And exhaling with a sigh. 2 more just like that. Deep inhale all the way to the belly. Exhaling with a sigh. Last one. Deep inhale. Sighing out the breath and fully arriving in present time awareness. Allowing yourself to continue to flow with this gentle rhythm, washing in and out. And bringing yourself to a space of noticing. Let's start with noticing sound. That's an easy one. So tuning your attention to any ambient sounds. Not noticing or paying attention or assigning value to any particular one, just allowing them to wash through your awareness. Maybe you're hearing the sound of traffic, the sound of my voice, the sound of birds. And we'll turn our attention now 1 degree a little bit closer to home, turning our awareness to sensation on your skin. Maybe feeling some warmth or feeling a breeze move across your face. Feeling your clothing. Feeling the areas where your body is resting against something. We'll turn our attention once more 1 degree inward into the internal environment. Inside the body. Paying attention to the subtle sensations. Maybe your digestion, feeling your heartbeat, continuing to feel the breath as your belly rises and falls. And as you're in this space of internal awareness, I invite you to move your attention toward the part of you that is receptive right now, the part of you that is here, waiting, expectant. And let's ask this part of yourself, what do I hope to gain from this time? What do I hope to gain from this time? And whatever comes to you, just allow it to wash through your awareness in that same way. And we'll ask a second question. How am I going to show up in this time? How am I showing up in this time? Again, allowing whatever arises to wash through you without any attachment, just noticing. And let's go ahead and offer ourselves a deep internal bow of gratitude for taking the time and space for this awareness and practice. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bringing your attention back to your body, coming back into your conscious awareness. Wiggling the fingers and toes. Give yourself a hug if you'd like. Give yourself a little squeeze on the shoulders. Coming back into the room, and when you're ready, opening your eyes. And go ahead and take just a minute in your journal to jot down anything you'd like. If there was anything that felt particularly potent to you in there that you'd like to make note of, now's the time. And I will open it up if there's 1 or 2 people who'd like to share if there was something that came up for you. Go ahead. And whoever jumped on, go ahead and please just mute yourself so we can keep the call quality clear, unless you unmuted to share something, in which case please do. I'd love to hear from 1 or 2 people. What are you hoping to gain from this time?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Michael.
Hi, how's it going?
Great.
Yeah, what came up for me was, I would like to be able to see deeper insights into blockages that I'm holding on to, and to how to clear the way to have clear flow of abundance and energy as my work unfolds.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Yes, let's hold space for that to take place and for you to receive that. Anybody else like to share? Let's do 1 more before we move on. Is everybody busy writing? Okay, well, feel free to jump in later. I think everybody's either taking notes or intimidated by my comment that this will be on the internet forever. So either way, you are welcome to come in and tune in, participate, or go ahead and use the chat box, and that way it'll be a little bit more, not so much on the air. And as we jump in, let's go ahead and again remind ourselves that we're here. This is an open invitation for you to receive whatever you need. Yes, I am offering you some teachings, some perspective, and this is for you to incorporate however would be most supportive for you. So knowing that, yes, this is a little piece of this course philosophy, and yet this is applicable far beyond I Am Alchemy. And I chose to share this particular teaching with you since this is one of the universally applicable principles that doesn't require any additional training or additional information. It's a standalone teaching that I believe is incredibly powerful and speaks to a great deal of what we as practitioners are exposed to and experiencing and bringing through in our work. So just to remind you, we'll be going into a little bit of the background of the Three Wisdoms of Hermes, into Hermes Trismegistus, and what he, or what this body of knowledge is offering, particularly through the lens of I Am Alchemy, but also in application of your own craft. We'll look at the Three Wisdoms of Hermes themselves. I'll tell you what they are right now, and then we'll go into them a little more deeply. They are alchemy, surprise, astrology, and theurgy. So we'll be talking about what they are, their own unique energy signatures, and how they impact you in your practice. And we'll be looking at what most teachings are missing in terms of bodies of knowledge, practices, mystery schools. What are they missing? I can pretty much guarantee that you're probably going to find yourself in the same position that I did when I discovered that this was a thing, and have, maybe a little blow your mind moment. Who knows? We'll see. And we'll go into how these Three Wisdoms of Hermes can support you in your practice and your body of knowledge, personally and professionally, if you are working with clients. And then we'll do a little exercise together to assess how is this showing up in your practice. And at the end of our time today, I will do a little bit of a share with you about I Am Alchemy course and how I Am Alchemy can support you in your practice, what it can do for you. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into Hermes Trismegistus. Hermes Trismegistus, who you may also have heard of as thrice greatest Hermes, is the quote founding father, I guess, is a good way to look at it. The guide who purportedly wrote the original text called the Emerald Tablet, thus spawning this whole birth of Hermetic mystery schools and all these different bodies of knowledge. He is also associated with the Egyptian god Thoth. And there are many different mythologies surrounding Hermes Trismegistus and Thoth as this keeper of knowledge and this transmitter of wisdom. And we're not going into Hermes mythology so much today. We're looking primarily at this one facet of his teaching, which is the Three Wisdoms of Hermes. Now, at the end of the Emerald Tablet, I don't know if any of you, actually, I know some of you because you're in the course, some of you are familiar with the Emerald Tablet. And if you're not, I encourage you, you could just Google it online. You'll find a translation online. But the end of the Emerald Tablet says, "Therefore am I called thrice greatest Hermes, having all three parts of the wisdom of the whole universe. Herein have I completely explained the operation of the sun." And so this is, keep in mind, at the end of the Emerald Tablet. Now, the Emerald Tablet is this document, this, for lack of a better word, this document which details the process of alchemy. So imagine reading through this entire procedural document that is very much encoded with metaphor and myth and opportunities for investigation and interpretation. And here at the very end are these couple of sentences saying, "Therefore am I called thrice greatest Hermes, having all three parts of the wisdom of the whole universe. Herein have I completely explained the operation of the sun." So he's telling us, I have all three parts of the wisdom of the whole universe because I'm Hermes Trismegistus, yay, right? Thrice greatest, all three parts of the wisdom. And here I've told you about the operation of the sun. I've explained sound issues. Someone's chatting in. What kind of sound issues are you having? Is it echoey? Can you hear me okay? Sounds good to Michael. Okay. Not experiencing sound issues. Okay. If you are having sound issues, maybe try logging out and logging back in again, or try turning up or down your volume. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for letting me know. I'm sorry that that's happening. Okay. We'll see them back in a moment. So herein have I completely explained the operation of the sun, referring to alchemy as the first of the three wisdoms. So we have the Emerald Tablet detailing this very specific series of operations, and Thrice Greatest Hermes is telling us, okay, I have all three parts of the wisdom of the whole universe. Here's the first one. You're welcome. All right, so when we're looking at this, we're taking the three wisdoms of Hermes, and we're looking at them individually today, and we're kind of piecing apart the different energy signatures of each. And the way that this shows up in I Am Alchemy, you'll see the different components: alchemy, astrology, and theurgy. It is really supportive for creating a foundation for practical magic, and we'll go into why that matters and what that means for you and your practice. So keep that in mind. Three parts of the wisdom of the whole universe. The first one is alchemy, and the second two are a little more well known, and we'll talk about those as well. So the first operation of, or the first of the three wisdoms of Hermes, is the operation of the sun, also known as alchemy. And alchemy is the art and science of transformation. It is in the name of the course, I Am Alchemy, the art and science of transformation of the I Am, so the transformation of the self, in case you didn't get that already. And it is commonly known as the process of transforming lead into gold. That's where I think most of us know of either like Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist, this whole like search for self-actualization and the transformation into gold that happens there. We also see alchemists show up in like Harry Potter, right? There's the Philosopher's Stone. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone is the result of this alchemical process of Nicholas Flamel, who actually was an alchemist, and there's some truth in Harry Potter after all, not that any of us doubted that. And here we can look at the physical process of transmuting lead into gold ultimately as the physical representation of the spiritual journey of the practitioner. So keep in mind that lead to gold is not only literally lead to gold, but it's also a metaphor, and it's a very powerful metaphor for transmuting that which is heavy and gross and dense into its most uplifted, illuminated, actualized form. Now, any alchemist who attempted the process of transmuting lead into gold without also partaking in the spiritual practice was ultimately unsuccessful. And those alchemists who move through the spiritual realms without also supporting the physical aspects of their practice were also unsuccessful. And we'll talk a little bit about that because it comes into play within the third wisdom of Hermes, theurgy. So this idea of alchemy, this process, very specific process of transformation of the heavy, gross, dull into illuminated, actualized form, it works on all levels. It works on the physical level, obviously led into gold, mental, emotional, and spiritual realms. And it's a set of principles that is universally applicable to any energy, any thought form, any idea, body of knowledge, physical object, etc. Anything can be worked on by the process of alchemy, which is what makes it one of these incredibly valuable tools and bodies of knowledge, because it works really harmoniously with pretty much any mystery school practice. There's a lot of correspondence with alchemy in other traditions. In fact, tarot has roots in alchemy. Hermetic mystery schools all have roots in alchemy. There's connections in shamanism and the process of transmutation. There's connections in Taoism. And Kabbalah is based in alchemy. Are so many mystery schools on earth that have roots in alchemical philosophy. And that's part of what makes it such a rich universally friendly tradition. And so I really hope, if this is something that is not already in your practice, at the very least, you're getting something out of this. And if there is more that you are feeling called to pursue, then that's an option too. So let's look at the second wisdom of Hermes, astrology, which in this course, we're working with the operation of the moon. Now, of course, when we're working with astrology, we're working with more celestial bodies than just the moon. However, we have the operation of the sun in alchemy. It's speaking to solar consciousness and working with the masculine philosophy. And we have the astrological, working with the moon, the lunar feminine consciousness and philosophy. The practice of astrology, and I'm betting / pretty much guaranteeing that more of you on here have experience with astrology than with alchemy, is the study of the heavens. Astrology looks to the influence of celestial bodies on terrestrial affairs. In essence, looking at what are the stars and planets doing, and how are they moving together, and how are they creating an influence of energy that we're feeling on Earth. That is the practice of astrology, is looking through an Earth-based lens at the movements of the planets and the stars, and relative to Earth, of course. And so keep in mind, every alchemist is also an astrologer, but not every astrologer is an alchemist. Now, this is because alchemy, as a very energetically potent, sensitive operation and process, is, especially working on Earth, it's influenced by the movement of the heavens. And so every alchemist does need to pay attention and need to work in alignment with the operation of the moon, work in alignment with astrological influences. And yet astrologers are not necessarily working within the school of alchemy. Transformation is affected by universal forces. P.S., in case you hadn't realized that already, our own process of transformation and transmutation has a lot to do with what is happening universally. So the more that we can understand the influences of the celestial bodies, the more we can work with them harmoniously to integrate into our own earthly transformation and spiritual transformation that's happening here. The energetic signatures of the celestial bodies, we're working with the archetypes and with their own influences to discover the constellation that they create, or the pattern of influence. Working with astrology in this lens, in I Am Alchemy, we work through the school of shamanic astrology. So there's this very potent reference to the lens of self, and looking at the self through these different archetypal lenses, particularly working with the archetypes of the zodiac. It's an incredibly powerful process, and a lot of work with the lunar cycle. So there is a great deal of lunar practice and lunar awareness coming into the shamanic astrology component of the I Am Alchemy curriculum. Let's move on to the third wisdom of Hermes, Theurgy. In case you need me to spell that for you, it's Theurgy. The, like Theo, like divine. Urgy, working. So divine working. Theurgy literally means divine working. And this is the operation of the earth. So we have alchemy, the operation of the sun. We have astrology, the operation of the moon. And we have theurgy, the operation of the earth. Now this divine working, and might give you a little bit of an idea of what we're talking about with theurgy. It's the process of intentionally invoking divine energies to come work on the physical plane, come to the earth plane. It's this transmuting of etheric or non-physical energy into embodied energy, meaning how are we invoking guides, invoking the presence of one or more divine being, invoking teachers, invoking ancestors, all these non-physical energies, and bringing them into something that we can work with and experience in the earthly container. This is any ritual practice, any ceremonial or magical practice works with theurgy. And I can pretty much guarantee that every one of you on here has experience with this. If you have ever prayed, if you have ever set an intention, if you've ever done energy healing work, you have practiced theurgy. So this is, I would say, the most accessible of the three wisdoms of Hermes. It's one that is taught in a majority of our mystery schools and practices. So let's go ahead, and before we move on, I want to take a little pause and see if there are any questions or comments. Go ahead and unmute yourself and share if you do. How's this feeling so far? Is this cool, exciting, giving you ideas? Excellent. Michael says, excellent, awesome, I'm so happy. Okay, great. Right? Like, this is fun. This is really cool, right? You know, who doesn't like studying magic? And honestly, like, any class that can bring Harry Potter and Paulo Coelho into it, I think is doing pretty good. Edie says, wonderful, awesome, okay, wondrous, excuse me. Beautiful. Any questions, or is everybody feeling pretty good? Seems like everybody's feeling pretty good and excited for more. Good so far. Awesome. All right, let's continue. Okay, so now feeling good. Aneshka's feeling good. Awesome. I'm super happy to hear that. Okay, great. Let's jump into what are most traditions missing? What are most mystery schools and bodies of knowledge missing? And I'm curious, just in me asking you that question, can you identify, based on what you're already familiar with and what you have the most experience with, what is missing from most teachings? Anyone have any thoughts or ideas? So
I got two things that I've noticed, which one would be, and they're kind of the same thing. Yeah. One would be like integrating physical with spiritual, which is the same as like incorporating sexual energy.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, integrating physical and spiritual. And so, yes, there is this component of how do we embody our practice? How do we create that union for practice to take place? Guidance following afterward. Awesome. Okay, do you mean, Jessica, let me clarify. Do you mean following after an initiatory experience or continued integration of a teaching? Yes. Awesome. Yeah. Unfortunately, that is generally missing from any training or body of knowledge. Who here has gone to a weekend workshop, like a weekend Reiki training or something like that? Probably a lot of people, myself included. I used to teach Reiki. I don't know if you knew that. I taught Reiki for 7 years. I taught, yep, people are raising their hands. Okay. Yeah. I taught Reiki for 7 years. I taught shamanic workshops. I teach a lot. And one of the reasons, just to speak to what Jessica is saying, one of the reasons why I felt called to offer a year-long course is because of that lack of follow-up. And, you know, as a teacher, of course, I was creating space for follow-up. I had a private group for all my Reiki students to join. I had a community. And I still have that. I still maintain that. And there are some students with whom I'm still in active content. But if people don't circle back around, there's only so much I can do. And I know it's a two-way street where some people feel, oh, I really wish the teacher had circled back around with me. And also, as the teacher who does proactively circle back around, it feels a little like, well, I can't help you if you don't ask for help. And so there is this need for a container for the integration and the follow-up practicing of a teaching. Awesome. Okay, so nobody said what I thought they would, and that's really interesting to me, but I'll just share with you. Looking at the Three Wisdoms of Hermes, where we are working with theurgy, astrology, and alchemy, I can tell you that pretty much any spiritual practice works with theurgy, right? Theurgy is the idea of invoking divine energies to come to the earth plane. So this includes any ritual or ceremony or practice or prayer or intention setting, right? We're inviting non-physical energies to come interact with us on earth. So this can come in the form of either, doing a drum circle, or doing a lunar circle, or doing a plant medicine circle, or praying, hey, please, dear God, please support my grandmother and her health and well-being, right? Like, that's a practice of theurgy, divine working. So divine working is pretty much universally present within the spiritual community and within these bodies of knowledge and these teachings. I would say it's a really pretty fair assessment that most bodies of knowledge and teachings have at least one, maybe two, but pretty much none of them have all three of the Three Wisdoms of Hermes. So theurgy, yes. Divine working, okay. Maybe they also have an astrological component, looking at the influences, the planetary and celestial influences. I know some of you on here are students of astrology. Maybe you work in Vedic astrology or shamanic astrology, or there's so many different astrological schools of influence that look at what are the different energy signatures and how are they influencing. Sometimes astrology also pairs with theurgy, right? In terms of, or maybe there's an astrological reading where you get your chart done and they're just saying like, oh, your moon is in Scorpio, which means this, and your sun is in Gemini, which means this thing. Good luck, right? And that's just the practice of astrology. It's looking at what are the influences, but not giving you any action or any way to relate to it or way to put it into practice in your physical earthly life. Now, this is something that I feel incredibly passionate about. I believe that all magic should be practical, and any spiritual practice that does not impact and uplift and enhance your lived experience is not worth your time. You may quote me on that. In case you can't tell, I'm like getting hot over here. I'm all fired up about this, where I look at all these spiritual practices that don't necessarily give us the path of how do I put this into action? How do I have this show up for me in my human life? That is a failure of a spiritual teaching. And I feel very strongly about that, because we are living in human bodies. We're living on earth right now, and pretending otherwise or having teachings or having experiences that do not translate to this realm is like, what's the point then? So bringing theurgy into play, astrology and theurgy, I think are the two, and this is some of what Michael was mentioning about the idea of bringing the spiritual into contact with the physical and vice versa. These are, I think, more present in the spiritual community, more common to see, okay, let's bring this in and let's practice it and let's work it and let's do ritual, let's do meditation and yoga practice. All of these are forms of theurgy. And let's look at astrology. Let's see the influences. And what I see that is profoundly missing in many teachings is a roadmap to transformation, which is alchemy. Now, I know that, any transformation sells, right? Let's just think about this from the perspective of what are people interested in and what are people invested in. We have people who are, I want to fully express my purpose in the world. I want to live in support and following my soul mission. I want to do the best thing for my family and my children. I want to be the best version of myself. I want to come into full actualization of all my unique gifts and talents, right? Like all of those things and more involve a process of transformation and self-actualization. They involve us stepping into the highest version of ourselves in every way, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, on all levels. And that inherently requires a process of transformation. But just kind of, again, like use your chat box or raise your hand. How many of you have ever actually learned, either had someone teach you or learned very specifically how change actually works? I didn't have anyone teach me until I learned how change actually works through alchemy. Did anyone ever have that? I'm genuinely curious. No. People are saying no. People are chatting in no. People don't teach us how change works. And I've had this conversation with so many people asking, if I were to say like, okay, what changes would you like to, where would you like to go? What change would you like to create in your life? And they'll say, I want to live fully soul aligned in my purpose and be of service. Okay, great. So I'll say, how are you going to do that? And they'll say, well, I'll quit my job and I'll go take this training and I'll go put this in action. And then we look at, well, that's not actually the how. Those are also changes. That's transformation itself. That's the thing that is transforming. But that's not the process of how do you take this energy and turn it into this other energy. And as soon as we get to that point, people are we don't know. And I found myself in that same boat. I found myself in the same position where looking at this, all the training that I've had over the years, all the training and the initiatory experiences, my background in terms of training and philosophy is in shamanism. That was my first body of knowledge that I studied, starting when I was 15 years old, studying and practicing shamanism, which is very much working with theurgy, working with the earth, working with ritual and practice and journey work and invoking energies pretty much entirely. Then also working with Reiki. I started my Reiki training when I was 19. And so moving through all the levels and layers of Reiki and doing Karuna Reiki, doing multiple lineages of Reiki, again, a theurgy practice. And so then I started looking into shamanic astrology because it was like, well, there's more to this. If I'm invoking all these energies, what are the influences of the energies that I'm invoking? And I started studying and practicing shamanic astrology. And then really coming upon alchemy, realizing that I was already working with alchemy and learning this lens of how does creation happen? How does transformation happen? And realizing that that is the missing piece throughout pretty much every tradition. And it boggles my mind that all of these philosophies and mystery schools can be touting, okay, don't you want to change? Don't you want to transform and come into this actualized version of yourself? And they don't teach you how that works. It blows my mind. Okay, so I see alchemy as this massively missing piece within our collective body of knowledge. And looking at how can this support our practice? How can the Three Wisdoms of Hermes support your practice, your body of knowledge? And I'd like to just take a moment and ask you, how would it feel to bring all of these three components into a harmonious intersection within your personal and professional practice? How would it feel to feel empowered and know, okay, I have access to and I am comfortable working with theurgy, divine working, bringing the divine into the earthly realm and the physical layer. Okay, I have access to and I feel really comfortable working with astrology, the influence of the heavens. I know generally what's happening and what's going on. So I know, okay, there's a full moon coming. It might hit a little bit hard for me because it's in my sign. And so I'm just going to, breathe it through and do this extra practice and feel like I can align my energies. And also knowing that we have a clear roadmap through transformation, through the process of transformation. Knowing that, okay, since I tend to like to hang out in this one stage of transformation, that's my comfort zone, but some of the signs and signatures that I'm stuck there are this and this and this. Okay, I'm seeing these signs. I know what rituals and what practices to do and what energies to move through so that I can continue the process of transformation rather than just looping through the first three stages again and again. As personal, speaking, once I learned that I was doing that, it was a huge eye-opening moment. I can tell you we all have that pattern. We all have a comfort zone in this cycle of transformation. So I'm dropping that little piece to you since that's the next Taste of I Am Alchemy class that I'll be teaching next week. I will go ahead and invite you to that at the end of our time today. But little seed planting right there, actually talking about the 7 stages of alchemy. P.S. next week. So an invitation to you to just consider, how would that feel to me? What would I gain from that? What would that do for me? And how would that impact my practice? I can't tell you how that would impact your practice. You're the only one who can tell you that. But it's just an invitation to sit with, where do I see myself benefiting from this? And what would that do for me? And then what would that do for my clients? What would it do for my family? What would it do for my relationships, my life, my finances, right? Because again, remember that the principles of alchemy are applicable on every level, transforming our bodies, transforming our hearts, transforming our thought patterns, transforming our businesses, transforming our wallets and our financial identity. It's a thing, people, for sure. Maybe you saw, P.S., maybe you saw the Alchemy of Money course that I was due to teach live in Portland before the snowpocalypse, quote. Canceled a few things, but it's something that I am looking at either redoing or rescheduling again at the Sacred Money Studios or doing as an online course. So if online, then I know many of you are not local, so please stay tuned because that might be a thing to come back. So knowing that so much of our work, personally and professionally, is related to the process of transformation and actualization, meaning how do we come into this highest version of ourselves? Alchemy gives us a roadmap to demystify the process of transformation. It takes the questions out of the equation. It's instead of how, do I go about doing this and kind of coming up, like sitting in front of a blank whiteboard with a marker in your hand, or just like, I don't freaking know how am I going to go from point A to point B? It gives you a recipe. It gives you a very procedural set of, okay, these are the stages of transformation. This is how transformation works. I'm telling you how it works. Okay, so now let's look at the planetary influences to see how it's impacting you in this area. And let's look at your ritual practice. Let's use theurgy to actually put this into action. It gives you a very tangible way to work practical magic in your life with your practice, which then allows you to step into your master creatorship. This is the essence of creation, being able to work transformation, right? We know that energy is neither created nor destroyed. It is transformed. So inherently the word creation is a little bit of a misnomer, right? Creation and transformation are tied deeply. They're related processes. And when we master one, we master both. So how would it be to know that, okay, having mastered the process of transformation and come into this full actualization, I am now capable of being a fully empowered creator of my life and of the world. And I know that you're here because you have a vision for your life and for the world. I know that you are here because you're a creator. And I want you to have the tools and the power and the knowledge that you need in order to be confident in that and in order to own that fully, which is why I'm offering classes like this. Okay. So let's do a little bit of an exercise. We just got a couple of minutes here before we shift gears a little bit. So I invite you to get out your journal, and I'm going to give you a couple of prompts. And I'll give you about 1.5 minutes to write on each prompt. It's going to be pretty quick, but this is something that you can revisit. And these prompts, the purposes of the prompts are to give us a little bit of opportunity for reflection on how can we re-examine the lens of re-examine our practice through this lens of the Three Wisdoms of Hermes. So when you're ready, go ahead, and I'm going to set a little timer for our journal here. Okay. So your first journal prompt is we're going to be assessing your practice, whether this is your personal practice, your professional practice, working with clients, whatever the deal is. So your first prompt is to look at each of the three wisdoms. How do I incorporate theurgy into my practice? And then how do I incorporate astrology? And how do I incorporate alchemy into my practice? So I'll give you a prompt for each of those. You'll have about 30 seconds for each one. So how do I incorporate theurgy into my practice? List all the ways. Next is, how do I incorporate astrology into my practice? Next is, how do I incorporate alchemy into my practice? Your next prompt is, what would be supportive for me to grow into? Meaning, what of these three wisdoms would be most supportive for me to grow into my practice? And your last prompt is, what would that do for me? What would that do for me to incorporate this wisdom and these teachings into my practice? Go ahead and wrap up your thoughts. Last 10 seconds. All right. How did that go? Does anyone feel called to share? Whether it's sharing from that journal prompt or sharing any thoughts or questions or epiphanies that came up in that part of the conversation.
Yeah, listening to you talking about these three different aspects, there are things that I've had awareness of, but just like the framing of these questions kind of made me realize that even with theurgy, which I have the most practice of,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been so consciously like weaving it in to my practice and the things that I do.
Yeah.
Astrology even less, and alchemy like zero or unconsciously.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that would be definitely a thing to be more aware of.
Awesome. Great noticing. Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. Yeah. Any other shares? How'd that feel? Is this making sense? Are there any kind of like, epiphany moments happening? Inner movements happening on some level. Okay, great. Thanks for sharing, Michael. Yeah. Beautiful. Keep breathing it through, right? This is a healing session, y'all, by the way. This is a transmission of energy and of knowledge you're receiving from this. This is ancient wisdom here. This is not my teaching. It's through my lens, but this is not my knowledge. So let it pour through you. Know that this originally came from Hermes Trismegistus, right? Thoth. Okay, and this is bigger and this is deeper than all of us. Alchemy is fully needed. Anashka says, alchemy is fully needed. It's my next step. Awesome. Yeah, this is, again, like I said, it blows my mind. It's like you don't know what you don't know, right? Or you don't know what's missing until you know better. And then you find out, you're like, well, shit, man, like I've been trying to create transformation in my life this whole time without ever actually knowing how it works. It's like trying to make a recipe, like trying to bake cookies, just knowing what cookies taste like and knowing that you want some, and then trying to figure it out without a recipe or without instruction. Janae, did you have something that you wanted to share?
Yes,
Yeah.
just quickly, it applies to the other thing you asked also about mystery school. I attended a wonderful mystery school, and the theurgy was very active in it. We had masters from all over the world, all the different traditions,
Yeah.
and it was experiential. We didn't have the astrology aspect very much. It was there, but it wasn't taught.
Yeah.
And as far as the alchemical process, that also was not taught. We experienced it, but it was not taught. And this class, which I'm in right now, your first presentation of the I AM Alchemy class, has, as I told you, I had a feeling it would put the frosting on the cake of all of the other spiritual things that I have been exposed to. And it truly has. It has given me the pathway, understanding of the pathway of how transformation does actually work. And it's taken me a while to really see that. I mean, but I do understand in retrospect now how important that really is.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for speaking to that. Yeah, Janae is one of my current alchemy students, and we're just wrapping up our year together at the end of March. So I really appreciate, and she comes from a long line of study of various mystery schools. So thank you for sharing. We'll go ahead and take, if there's one more share, anybody has a share or a question before we shift gears a little bit into our closing. If not, that's okay too. Again, I know everybody's in a little bit of integration mode. That's fine. Okay, so thank you. First of all, thank you so much for joining me for this today. I'm really happy and excited. Like I said, I know some of you, I've met some of you in person, some of you I've spoken with but never met, and some of you I'm not sure who you are, but I'm really, really glad that you're here today, and I'm absolutely thrilled to share this with you. In case it's not obvious, I'm super excited about this work, and I love inviting it into and inviting people into it and inviting this work into people's consciousness. Because as I said, I do believe that this is one of the massively missing pieces within the context of our spiritual work as practitioners, as light workers. And this is something that I see vitally necessary in order to be the magically empowered and fully actualized creators that we want to be. So thank you for stepping into this. I appreciate it. And now that we are closing, we're just in our last few minutes here, I would like to take a couple of minutes and share with you a little bit more about the I Am Alchemy course specifically, and also offer you a special invitation. This is something, again, and I know I've spoken with some of you about this and some of you have expressed curiosity. There is more where this came from. Again, what we experience today is one of the behind the scenes teachings of I Am Alchemy. This is, again, an interweaving process. The I Am Alchemy curriculum, it's a year-long, it's very intensive training, and it offers insight and practical application of magic within the school or within the realms of theurgy, astrology, and most importantly, alchemy. So I would really love to highlight to you some of the things that are different about I Am Alchemy rather than any, just another mystery school or any other body of knowledge. In addition to the Three Wisdoms of Hermes, as we've talked about today, this is, again, one of the foundational pieces of I Am Alchemy, where everything we do corresponds or has relation to, okay, what is the practical application of this? How do we call it into the earth plane? How do we work with the influence of the celestial bodies? And how do we guide this through a process of transformation? It's all very detailed, hands-on, practical magic. Self-mastery is one of the keys of I Am Alchemy. This is something that, we are motivated to master our craft. And yet this, I would say, is another missing piece that I see within the spiritual community or any other teaching, is that most, advertised masteries, I'll put that again in quotes, most teachings or bodies of knowledge that advertise mastering your craft skip the part about mastering yourself. And as we know through alchemy, the journey of transmuting lead into gold is ultimately the spiritual journey of the practitioner. And one cannot master anything outside oneself without mastering oneself first. So that is the practice of I Am Alchemy, is self-mastery, and it is mastering your craft by mastering yourself first. And that, I think, makes it really unique among other teachings, among other mystery schools. Again, it's working in practical magic. I am of the firm philosophy that any spiritual practice that you cannot apply to your lived experience is not worth your time. That means that everything we do in I Am Alchemy is ultimately applicable to how am I living my life as a human? How can I put this into practice? How can I have more tools and techniques and knowledge and insight, not only for my spiritual practice and for my energy work, for my healing, but also for my business, for my income, for my family, for my emotional intelligence, for my practice, for my health, my body, my vitality. These are all things that are fundamentally related to our ability to be energetic beings in the world. Without speaking to the human experience and without speaking to the practical applications, magic isn't really worth much. Magic without a physical result, something that we can actually live and touch and feel, isn't really doing its job. So I Am Alchemy offers teachings into practical magic. It also emphasizes exploring your unique path through the lens of I Am Alchemy. There are teachings, there are learnings and practices and techniques and all of this that you would learn in any training, but ultimately, again, it's giving context into your own self-mastery, which means that the way that you work with I Am Alchemy is not going to be the same that anyone else works with I Am Alchemy. What it does for your practice and your life is going to be different, and all of that is celebrated and spoken to within the practice of I Am Alchemy. This year we have a life coach, we have a Reiki master, sound healer, we have another sound healer, musician, medicine man, we have a celebrated author, we have a PhD student, we have all these different people in our cohort who all have their own unique intuitive gifts, their own unique pursuits of how those gifts are manifesting, and opportunity for them to apply these teachings to their own gifts in order to understand themselves and their innate magic more completely and more fully, and make it more effective in the world. This is, again, it's not just you're learning stuff, you're learning the curriculum, you are receiving tools to help you and your magic be more effective. And that, I think, is incredibly unique. There's an emphasis on community. We spend a lot of time in our retreat experiences. By the way, we have a retreat experiences, but we spend a lot of time connecting and building community with each other, knowing that we're not all local, and we're not all immediately physically present with each other, but there is still a really strong energetic connection. There are buddies, accountability buddies, that people work with each other to practice techniques, to do exercises, to check in on each other, to trade sessions. If that's something that you feel called to do, there's a lot of emphasis on community support and rapport, not just from me, but from your fellow students. And there is business mentorship as well. That comes into play, knowing that those of you who are practitioners or who are putting your work out into the world, this is something that, again, applying alchemical philosophy to a business, and I can speak from personal experience doing this in my own business, has made the world of difference to me. And I want you to have that information as well. As such, you have me, who I am successfully running a business where I'm completely supported by this work and by this practice. And I have 9+ years successfully working in this field. So knowing that business support and the practical application of your spiritual work is something that is encouraged and emphasized in the course. In terms of logistics, the 2019 alchemy curriculum includes 3 4-day retreats at this epically beautiful retreat center just outside of Portland, and a 3-day graduation weekend. That is 15 days of in-residence, in-person, all-included experience, where all you have to do is show up, and then everything is taken care of, from our food to our lodging to beautiful yoga barn to practice space to doing qigong together, doing ritual practices, fire ceremony practices, other practices together, and being physically in community, away, a little bit off the grid. There's still signal there, so if you need to have emergency connections, you can, but you can turn off your phone if you want and just be really present in a beautiful space and be very nourished by your community. There are 36 classes, so online training, since again, we have people all over the place, and everybody gets one-on-one sessions with me. That's something that is unique in this. You're not sharing your time with anybody else. It's not a semi-private mentorship session. It's a one-on-one mentorship session with me once a month, and you can contact me anytime in the meantime. Shoot me an email, ask me to look over your website, ask for my advice or insights or helpful questions about a big life transition, whatever it is, ask me anything is also included in this. And you also receive the book. It's a really incredibly beautiful book. It's finishing its printing stages. And Janae, thanks for bearing with me and my other first year cohort. They bared with me a lot because there wasn't a physical book. There were papers and documents and other pieces, but it's finally born in a physical book that is absolutely beautiful. So you receive the book, you receive the curriculum in perpetuity. It's always available to you. And you get a free ticket to a 4-day intensive lightworker training in October. So in addition to all the training that we're doing in our alchemy work, you receive a free ticket to a 4-day intensive training in October, where I teach practices and teach healing techniques such as soul retrieval, emotional alchemy work, working in body awareness, working in the cosmic keys of the universe, working with soul alignment, soul contracts, and karmic clearing. So, and many, many more techniques. So you'll receive all of that with the I Am Alchemy course. And I Am Alchemy begins April 2nd. So it is coming up here pretty soon. I am currently taking applications and deposits. There are already a handful of people signed up, and I have room for about 5 more. in the course. So if this is calling to you, please do not hesitate. If you've been thinking about this, if you've been pondering this, now is the time to jump in. And to help you make that decision, I want to share with you that the financial investment for I Am Alchemy is an initial deposit of $777 that would go through right away to hold your space, and then 12 monthly payments of $997 starting in April when the course begins. So if you were to say, I want in right away, and you were to submit your application, submit your deposit, the $777 would go through right away, and then your credit card would be charged starting at the beginning of April, $997 for 12 payments. However, if you submit your application 24 hours from now, so by 11 o'clock on Saturday, tomorrow, I will give you $250 off your deposit. And so that would make your initial deposit only $527 if you submit your application by 11 a.m. on Saturday. Now, this is not, I'm 100% committing to do the course. I'm not asking you any money within the next 24 hours. I'm only asking for your application so that we can get your foot in the door, and then you and I will schedule an interview to make sure that this is the best fit for you. So again, if you want to claim your $250 off the deposit, then go ahead and submit an application. I'm gonna pop into the chat box here and just post the link that you can click right over there. Oops, where's my chat box? There you go. Okay, so you can submit your application and we'll get the ball rolling. So I'll take one moment before we close. I know we're a little bit over time. Thank you so much for bearing with me, but does anyone have any questions or thoughts or comments before we close? How's everybody doing? Was this fun? Was this helpful? Inspiring? It's scary a little bit. Good, it's scary a little bit. Oh, I'm so intrigued about what that means. Okay, Edie says, I'm in gratitude, Michelle. Thank you, shiny being. Ah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And Michael, if you feel called to share what's scary, I'm so curious. Otherwise, we can email about that later. But oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll share. I just, it feels like a lot of, I can feel the like transformative power of what you're offering. And yeah, it's scary to step into that. It's scary to step into full power.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's butterflies.
Butterflies. I have full body chills. Thank you so much for speaking to that. And I mean, that's a longer conversation right there, but it is, we are asking ourselves to be transformed by stepping into this work. We are saying yes to the unknown. And quite honestly, there is potentially nothing scarier than that. So thank you for speaking to that. Janae, did you have anything to share real quick?
Yes, in terms of it being scary, and it's always scary to step off the cliff, but it is an awesome experience all the way through.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Janae. And it's been such an honor to take this journey with you. Thank you for being here. And I'm so glad you're on this class today, even though we've already talked about all this stuff. Thank you. So for all of you who are still here, thank you. I'm offering you just a huge bow of gratitude for showing up and for spending this time with me. I know that you could have been anywhere. It's 11:11 right now. You could have spent your last hour and 11 minutes anywhere at all. Thank you so much for spending it with me. I'm really, really grateful. And to just give you, again, put that date on your calendar. I am going to send you a follow-up email. So you can expect an email from me pretty soon that will have a link to the recording of this conversation today. If you want to revisit it, it will have a link to apply for I Am Alchemy. It'll have a link to register for next week's Taste of I Am Alchemy class. So I'm going to give you more. I'm going to keep giving you little tastes until you just can't stand it anymore and you have to jump in. Or you're just so excited that you want to keep coming back for more. Either way, I'm so delighted to see you. So our next week class is on Thursday, not on Friday. So Thursday, February 28th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And our topic for next week is the 7 stages of alchemy. So actually going a little bit into the first wisdom of Hermes. I'm going to give you a little bit of a bullet point version of the 7 stages of alchemy so you can start looking out for them and paying attention to how they show up in your life. So all of that will be in your email. Again, you can receive the link to the recording You'll receive a link to apply for the course itself, and you'll receive a link to next week's class. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really, really happy and excited to share this with you, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Many blessings. Bye.